And my overhead projector speech today is a speech to inform. One day last summer, after assembling my rig by sliding the sail onto the mast and inserting the battens into the sail and putting on the boom, I sailed all day, thanks to my harness. Practicing tacking, jibing, and even some wave jumping. What am I talking about, you ask? Does anybody wonder what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the awesome sport of windsurfing. And after this speech, you will be able to know what a windsurfer is and how it operates, as well as know the basic elements of windsurfing. Now, the windsurfer basically has two parts: the sail and the board. Now, the sail is what catches the wind. The wind is what propels a windsurfer, a lot like a sailboat. A windsurfer in actuality is a sailboat that you stand on. Okay? Now, the sail is made up of three basic parts. First is the sail itself, which is the colored area, okay? And it is made of either canvas and really old sails, or more modern materials such as Kevlar or a Dacron, which are lighter and have a lot better performance in windsurfing. These black lines in the sail are where the battens are slid in. When I said I slide in the battens, those are stiffeners for this part of the sail, because if they didn't have the stiff part, they're made out of fiberglass and they're pretty stiff. They bend a little bit, but they're pretty stiff. You slide them into there and it stiffens this part of the sail so it doesn't flap in the wind. Flap in the wind like a flag does when it's out on a real windy day. Secondly is the mast, which is this stick or pole which goes from the top of the board all the way up here. And it's made of either fiberglass or aluminum. And that is what you slide the sail onto. And that's what holds. It's round, cylindrical, about 2 inches in diameter at the bottom, and then it goes up gradually about to 1 inch in diameter at the top. And that's what the sail is on. And the third thing that the sail is made of is the boom, or which is called a wishbone boom. Now, boom is kind of a funny term. I know in sailing, there's the boom, which is on the sail. A lot of times it hits you in the head, so I don't know if that's the reason they call it the boom. But this is the boom which wraps around the sail, is connected here to the mast, and here to this end of the sail. And it's in a wishbone shape, which is a gradual, very gradual oval shape. And this is what the sailor holds on to when he's sailing with two hands. One hand here, and one hand about here. Okay? Now, the other basic part of the windsurfer is the board, which is basically designed after the surfboard of the early 60s, but in the late 60s they redesigned it for better performance for windsurfing. And it consists of the board itself, the center board, and a skeg. Now, after the board and rig are set up, this is also called the rig, then it is time to sail. But before we sail, we must understand the fundamentals or the theory behind how to control a windsurfer. Now, windsurfing takes balance. So the first thing you must remember is when you get up on the board is it does take balance. Because you see the man is standing here and he's holding on to the boom here. He must have a lot of balance to keep himself up there. Okay? Now, the fundamentals behind the theory of windsurfing is that, first of all, it's propelled by the wind. It's pushed along by the wind, okay? Now, look at this here, right here. It's called the center of effort. This is right about in the middle of the sail. And when the wind hits that part of the sail, it pushes the board, whatever part of the board that part of the sail is over, away from the wind. So let's say this center of effort is right in the center of the board. That means when it's in the center of the board, it'll push it forward. Okay? Now, if this sail is tilted forward, as in this diagram here, to this position, the center of effort moves over to the front of the board, right to here, which would mean the wind pushes the sail here, which pushes the front of the board downwind, which means away from the wind. Okay? And then if the sail is leaned back, the center of effort is above the back of the board, which pushes the back of the board downwind, which would be away from the wind. Do you understand what I'm saying? The wind is at the sailor's back, and it pushes it either way, whichever way the sail is tilted. And that's how you control the windsurfer. Now, when you know how the windsurfer functions, you can then learn how to windsurf. Now, windsurfing is easier than it looks. One thing I'm sure a lot of you are wondering is, boy, I don't think I'm really strong enough to do that. Because as you see in this man right here, he looks like he needs a lot of strength to sail even for a little bit, doesn't he? Because all his weight, here's the board down here, and here's the sail, here's the boom I was talking about. His arms, his hands are holding onto the boom on the other side of the sail. And it looks like he needs a lot of strength to do it. But in essence, strength really is not a factor in windsurfing. It's mostly balance. In fact, many women and many children even windsurf. Many women windsurf professionally, which means they do it as their main job. Now, one reason they can do that is because of what is called a harness. Now, a harness is kind of like a life jacket that comes around your body and has a hook right in the area right here, open on the bottom. And onto the boom is attached a line, a string, as you see right here. And all the windsurfer or the sailor has to do is, see the hook right here? All he has to do is flick the sail toward him, which flicks this line into the hook. He tensions, puts tension on it so the line stays, and then leans back, and his body weight is holding the sail from going over. Instead of his arms doing all the holding, in actuality, he could just drop his arms. If he has the balance, he can drop his arms and sail, windsurf, without his hands, because his body is holding the sail up. But before you even use a harness, you need to be able to get up on the board and windsurf. Like I said before, it does take balance, and first of all is you have to jump up on the board and stand on it. Now when you do that, the sail will be laying in the water downwind from you, which means the wind will be at your back. The wind is right over here, going this way. Okay? Now the sail is dropped into the water down here. What you want to do is lean down, pick up this rope right here, which is called the uphaul line. Uphaul, I mean you haul it up. Okay? Keep your back straight and your knees bent, and gradually, hand over hand, grab the uphaul line. Gradually go up, and as you see, there's little knots in the rope. Can you see the little knots? Those are there to help your hands not to slip. The sail will gradually come up. You don't have to put a lot of tension on it at first. It'll seem really hard at first, but as you do it, it'll come up slowly but surely. And then once you have the sail up, you will have both hands, and the sail will be flapping in the wind perpendicular to you, because the wind is coming from your back, and you'll have both hands up on top. Now that takes a lot of balance at first when you do this. Once you get the sail up to this point, it'll be really hard to keep your balance because you'll be fighting against the weight of the sail, the wind flapping, the waves going. It's really hard to keep your balance. Now the next step is you cross over with your left hand or the front hand, grab onto the boom. Then you drop the right hand, and then pull the sail towards you around here just a little bit and grab it with your right hand. Okay, so your both hands are on the boom. Then you slowly but surely, what we call sheet in with your back hand, the hand that's in the back, or here is your right hand. And when you pull the sail in, the wind is to your back and it catches the wind and makes you go forward. Now you say, well, you told me how to get it up, you told me how to go forward, but how do you stop? How do you stop this thing? Well, all you have to do is drop the sail. If you have to stop really quick, just let go of everything and let it go. But if you don't, it's nice and graceful to slowly grab the mast down here at this point, and then slowly let it drop into the sail, and it'll stop your board right there, where it is. Now that you know the fundamentals of the sport of windsurfing, and maybe you will want to get out and try it one of these days if you're near an inland lake or an ocean, and at least you will know a little bit about what a windsurfer is. And if somebody like me ever comes up to you and starts talking about it, you might know a little bit of what I'm talking about. Thank you very much. Demonstrate is on how to clean a VCR. Now, how many in this room own a VCR at home? Not here at school, but at home. So I thought almost everybody. Today, the VCR seems to be as common as your telephone. Seems like everybody has a VCR. But the only problem is that most people know how to run it. They know how to put the tape in, and they know how to press play, or they know how to press record. Most people know how to do that, fortunately. But if anything ever happens, if anything little happens, like the picture gets a little fuzzy or something, we think automatically that this is a VCR. There's no way I can do anything to fix it. So we think we have to take it to a repairman to get it fixed. But did you know that if you take your VCR to a repair shop to get it fixed, that man will charge you at least $35 to $50 just to open it up to see what's wrong with it? Okay? So today, I'd like to show you some general maintenance procedures that will prevent or maybe even fix some problems that you have with your VCR before you have to take it to a repairman. But first of all, how does a VCR work? I'd like to show you a little bit how it works before I show you how it's cleaned. Usually, there are at least 4 screws on a VCR that hold the top of the VCR on. Okay? See the top, this all explained? This whole top comes off. There are 2 on the back, and then usually 2 on the bottom. Every VCR is different. But one thing that I've seen that's common with VCRs is that there are little arrows pointing to the screws that you want to take out. You probably can't see them. They know that we're Americans, so we need these things. The little arrows point to the screws here, and then there's little arrows ingrained in the metal here. I don't know if you can see them. There's little arrows there. I've already taken these 2 out for time's sake. And you need a Phillips screwdriver usually, because they are usually Phillips screws. You usually don't see plain screws in electronic equipment. Take the 2 screws out. Carefully turn it back over because your top is loose now, so you don't want it to fall off. And you grab the sides like this, and voila, you take the top of your VCR off. And look at that mess! No, here is the inside of a VCR. Okay? Has anybody ever seen the inside of a VCR before? Okay? Now, this is how a VCR works. How many wonder sometimes, why does it take so long for a picture to come up on your VCR, on your TV, after you press play? And if you've ever wondered, I used to wonder that. I said, man, you press play and you have to wait about 5 seconds for the picture to come up on the screen. Well, the reason is this. Watch what happens when you press play. Here's your tape. I stuck the tape in. Now when I press play, nothing happens. We'll press stop. Oh, I see. Okay. I forgot this VCR was like this. Okay. Let's do that again. I shall eject this tape. Okay, this VCR automatically puts the tape on this spinning cylinder. See the cylinder that's spinning? That is the head. Now what happens when you put your VCR tape in, watch what happens. Come on. Well, I don't think it's going to work when I show it to you like this. It drops down. Did anybody see how these, see the tape right here, this capstan, this little metal thing, and this metal thing over here actually pulled the tape out of the tape fiber out of the tape case and wrapped it around the cylinder. Okay, so when you press play on your VCR, it actually brings the tape out and wraps it around this cylinder, and it spins and it reads the information that's on the tape. So that's why it takes a while. Now, to show you a little bit of the heads on the VCR, which need to be cleaned. This is your playback head. This cylinder that's spinning right here is your playback head. That's what reads the picture and puts it on the TV. These heads right over here are the audio playback and record heads. That's what records and plays back the sound of your movie or show, whatever you're watching. And then over here is the erase head. This erases whatever is on the tape. When you're recording something, it erases whatever is on the tape, and then before it gets it to the record head. Okay? Now this right here is your play and record head for your video. Okay? Now, to clean a VCR, which is a very basic maintenance procedure, which I said could prevent something from happening or also fix a fuzzy picture. First thing you need to do is unplug your VCR. Because whenever you open a VCR like I just did, you don't want to have it plugged in unless you know really what you're doing. Not that I know really what I'm doing, but you first want to unplug it because there are a lot of chances for electrical shock, as you can see all the wires. So first of all, unplug your VCR. First of all, you need to take your tape out. Okay, there goes the tape. Unplug your VCR. Take a simple, everyone has Q-tips at home, I would assume. If your ears ever get dirty, you need Q-tips to clean them. Take a Q-tip and regular 70% isopropyl alcohol, or which is just regular alcohol that you'd get at Walmart or anywhere you'd buy, things like that. Soak your Q-tip with alcohol. It doesn't really matter how soaked you get because it evaporates very quickly. That's one reason why you use alcohol. And you look, the hardest one to find are the heads on this cylinder right here. The cylinder right here. Now it's okay to touch the top of it, but you never want to touch the outer perimeter of it because that's what goes across the head. That's what you're cleaning. Now you want to generally clean the whole thing just by rubbing with your Q-tip. But also there are little, you can't see it from here, but if you look at your head at home, there's little notches one on each side. And that's where the head of your VCR. That's where the tape is actually red, okay? So you really want to make sure those are clean. And you might, I'm going to put this down for now, so I can hold it so it doesn't move, because the cylinder moves real easily. You want to hold it and really scrub it with your Q-tip. Now a lot of us think that electronic parts are very delicate, very fragile, but when it comes to cleaning heads, you can rub it as hard as you want, because you really want to get it clean, and you won't hurt the playback heads or the record heads at all. So just clean that real well. And then over here are your audio recording and playback heads. And you see inside, you just want to take your Q-tip again. What I usually do is I use the other side for each different head of the VCR. Soak it with alcohol. And then just go up and down, scrub it really good like this. And then you can see, I don't know if you can see, you can't see it. There's dirt on my Q-tip. Nobody's cleaned this VCR for a while. Then you come over here to your erase head. Clean that. Now, as you saw when the tape was in here, there were these mechanisms right here, and a couple more were actually pulled the tape out. Well, wherever the tape touches those capstans, you need to clean those. Those are called capstans. So you need to clean, because a lot of times the tape will leave a lot of residue on those also, as well as the heads, because they're constantly going over those capstans. So you want to clean those as well. And again, just press as hard as you need to get the dirt off. Quickly clean those. Make sure you can't see any. A lot of times they're made out of silver usually, and you can actually see dark pieces of either metallic material from the tape or something like that. And a lot of times you see there are a lot of little dark pieces of dust or something. You really have to scrub it to get it off. And then when everything's clean, you take your top. But now before you put your top back on, you want to do a general look around inside and make sure there's not any dust build up, because a lot of times there can be dust build up. So just look around inside and just give it a quick blow. Make sure there isn't any water in your mouth or any saliva, because you don't want to spit into your circuitry. Just blow around generally to get all the dust out. And put your cover back on. And put the screws back in. Now, how many found that a lot simpler than you thought? That's what I thought. Now, cleaning and being able to do this simple procedure on your VCR not only can save you money, but as what happened to me when I was at my grandfather's house once last Christmas, I was trying to repair a videotape, and that had broken. And so I was trying to splice the tape together, which means you tape it back together. But I had left some Scotch tape with the sticky side still exposed that goes on that cylinder head. Okay, and I didn't realize this. So I put the tape in, and it was going fine until I got to that spot. Then all of a sudden, all this fuzz happened on the screen, and it was just blurring up the whole picture. And I thought, oh no, it must be the tape. So I pulled the tape out and looked okay, and then I put another tape in, and everything that I played on the VCR was fuzzy. And I was thinking, man, this is my grandfather's $400 or $500 four-head stereo VCR. I mean, beautiful stuff. And I'm thinking, man, what am I going to do? But I remember hearing about being able to do this. So I thought, wow, maybe it's just the head. So I opened it up just like this, and took a Q-tip, little alcohol, cleaned the head just like I showed you, and praise the Lord, when I put it back together, it was fine. So not only will it save you money, but it might also save your neck as well. Thank you very much. Jordan, to an audience in a Sunday night church service whose pastor brought in a quote unquote AC professional like me to come in and share with their congregation who does not have a school in their church. So he wants me to just come share what I have to share about Christian education. Good evening. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. I want to thank your pastor for the opportunity to share with you what the Lord has laid on my heart as far as Christian education. In my study of education among Christians, there seems to be basically three categories of parents. One category is the parent that desires to send their child to a Christian school. Another category, number two, is the parent that desires to send their child to a public school. And the third category is the parent that decides to homeschool their child and train them at home. What I would like to focus on today is mainly the first two sets of parents. Those that desire to send their child to a Christian school and those who desire to send their child to a public school. Now they make their decision based on a multitude of reasons. And what I'd like to do with you tonight is share with you some of those reasons and either firm up your beliefs and your opinions and what you believe your decision is, or maybe make you stop and think a little bit on where you desire to send your child. If you would, let's bow our heads for prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this evening, Lord. I thank you so much for the opportunity, Lord, that you've given us to have free speech, Lord. And thank you, Lord, for giving us your holy word, Lord, and the principles in it, that we might learn and live and walk the way you've taught us to live, Lord. And I just pray that you'll open our hearts and minds, Lord, to what you would have us to learn tonight. In your name we pray. Amen. Now the first set of parents I like to talk about is those that desire to send their child to the public school. Now why do parents Christian parents, desire to send their child to the public school? The first reason that I've heard many parents say is, the public school is not that bad where we live. They live maybe in a little country town where the public school is still what they think is okay. Maybe the things they are taught are not as bad as what other schools from bigger cities might think and might find in their schools. In my own personal experience, when I was in first grade, I was in a it was over, not high society, but a wealthy neighborhood. It was right on Lake Michigan. And when I was in first grade, my parents decided to send me to Long Beach Elementary School. And it was a small town, very highfalutin people. And my parents, they were Christians at the time, and they figured that sending me to a public school in first grade, nothing could really happen to me. And they did that. And praise the Lord, when I got into the public school, I had a Christian teacher who went to the same church that we went to. And she was great. And since I was in first grade, I really don't remember maybe a lot of the different belief systems or something that the public school was trying to teach me. But I do remember that I enjoyed my time with this teacher. But then second semester, she was going to have a baby. And so she had to leave, and they had to bring a substitute teacher in. Now we had what we called a quiet time every day, where there was a half hour in the afternoon where we would lay our heads down and listen to a record that one of the students brought in. And of course it would be approved by the teacher. Now Mrs. Nagel, my Christian teacher, before she left, she had us bring in records. They weren't all Christian, but I brought in a Danny Kaye record, which had Thumbelina, Thumbelina, tiny little things, all those little things. We would lay our heads down and listen to nice, pleasant music like this. But when our substitute teacher came in, I guess one of the girls in our class figured that, this teacher might allow some more things. So she brought in a Kiss record. Kiss is, I don't know if many of you know Kiss, they're kind of out now, but they were a very, very hard rock band that was very demonic. And she played this record while we laid our heads down. And when I was in the class, I just laid there and listened to it. All I knew was Kiss was bad. But there were a lot of bad things entering the minds of my mind and all the rest of the students' minds. So your little public school that you might not think is too bad may be a lot worse than you think. Our new president, President Clinton, before he was president, as you know, was governor of Arkansas. And a friend of mine gave me a videotape that shows his agenda that he planned for the state of Arkansas for a better education in that state. And right now I'd like to show you a little bit of what Clinton's agenda was in Arkansas and what I would assume his agenda would be in the United States today. Allison, could you cut the lights, please?
In 1979, the man who would govern Arkansas for more than a decade implemented an agenda, an activist agenda intended to change the future of the state. The essence of that agenda is perhaps best reflected in the Arkansas education bureaucracy, a crucial part of the Clinton administration and Clinton plan for the future. The policies that drive the education agenda in Arkansas are specific, unusual, somewhat experimental, and they appear to have failed miserably. Today, the state ranks near the bottom nationally, 45th in literacy and 44th in performance on standard achievement tests. Yet Bill Clinton defends even the most radical of his policies. He argues that he has not failed, but succeeded, raising the question, just what is Bill Clinton's idea of educational success? The Clinton administration recently answered that question with a one-hour documentary. The show describes Clinton's dream come true, a model for statewide education reform. Correctly named the Governor's School, this experimental program features an experimental curriculum through which young professors administer concentrated doses of education reform to highly impressionable 17-year-olds.
Are you ready to divorce yourself from your body? And although there are no grades, no tests, and no credit, admission is highly competitive. It would be impossible for me to describe to you just how exciting and unusual this educational adventure is.
But critics are describing this educational experience with great alarm and outrage. Mark Lowry is the former director for Governor's School Publicity.
I think the whole intent of the Governor's School in taking 350 to 400 students per summer is they're getting the best and the brightest students in the state of Arkansas, and they're trying to pick out, I think, those 4 or 5 or 6 exceptional students that could be future political leaders, and then to mold their minds in this more liberal humanistic thinking. And it's the 6-week program really amounts, I think, to mental hazing.
It was Bill Clinton's idea. It's his whole project. It's his educational masterpiece.
This was the seed of what Governor Bill Clinton had for the whole of Arkansas. And in the last legislative session, a bill was brought forth that now is law in Arkansas that forces all school districts to restructure their curriculum that's based on this, to where academics, reading, writing, and arithmetic are no longer the purpose for education.
I'm going to say this. Hillary Clinton, for instance, talked about converting the schools into something similar to Governor's School.
Rather than students learning how much 2 and 2 equals, they would be asked what they feel about 2 plus 2. Right now we have a move going on in our Arkansas schools called restructuring, where they are trying to move away from more objective, substantive learning into the subjective area of feelings and I think ultimately political correctness.
Students at Governor's School 92 summarized the restructured curriculum with a morose T-shirt creation.
I guess if I could express myself, I'd close my eyes and just think what things wander through, because that's just the type of sensation you got when you were in Bill's class.
Kind of like that Baha'i idea, how you have Islam, Baha'i, Muslim, Christianity, they're all different kinds of trees. But underneath, it's a root system that goes together, is the same God. And a lot of people said, yeah, I believe in that.
People did a lot of different things. You can dress just about any different way you want. We had, just almost naked people. It was real liberal, I think. The language, there was, like in the halls at school, every other word you might have heard. Not every other word, that's not true, but there was an awful lot of cursing. Shh, don't tell them. I was the one that wore the skirts, the togas, dressed up weird, because there was free. They let you do it.
We only did, three books about that day, and it's filled with all sorts of different stuff. And like the funny thing was to draw the word sex and the roots.
You can go around, be free, feel as you want to feel. Certain times we run out in the field and just spin around, jump up and down, roll in the grass with one another, because that's the way it was at night. We'd get together, story readings, talk, play Mao or something like that,
We did talk about morals a lot. We talked about relativity. Is everything relative, or are there specifics, in society in general? And we talked about, the almost perfect utopia.
When I went to Governor's School, I could actually say, and I'd been able to do that before, not any summer, not anywhere, you know, a lot of places I went, even Christian camps, you still get that stress about, what am I doing wrong? And God, please forgive me. I know I'm a sinner. There it was like, hey, I can talk to God. Me and God are one. The world is one. The universe is one. Gosh, I love this place. Jump up and down. You know, just twirl around. They say relaxation, but there's a word past relaxation. There's a word somewhere in between that feeling of relaxation and love that we missed, and I don't know the word for it, but I came up with my own word. I called it a Gaia. It's spelled the same way backwards and forwards. It's A-Y-U-G-U-Y-A. And it just meant, you know, a lot of my friends went around and, you know, hey, Gaia. You know, peace, love, happiness, you know, bringing back the hippie age, I guess you'd say.
Okay, see, these are films shown at the
Upper
government
class, the
school.
middle class, you know, we watch, you know, movies like Harvey Milk. We learned about that. We learned about gay rights. We learned about everything. Those things that your parents say, this is wrong, this is right, you shouldn't see this type of thing because, hey, you know, that's just not, you know, right, you know. I saw those skeleton, dead bodies after dead bodies after dead bodies.
Cynical and morbid philosophies like those in these required films are part of the non-academic program that can leave students in confused, abstract states of mind. Indeed, the school emphasizes abstract intelligence rather than practical or concrete intelligence. Other prominent themes promoted by the school include radical homosexuality, classic socialism, pacifism, and a consistent hostility toward Western civilization and culture, especially the biblical foundations of the American Republic. Year after Clinton established the governor's school, he was rejected as governor. Successor Frank White, shocked by what he called garbage in the curriculum, directed that the school begin to express and support conventional moral values. But Clinton and his educational appointees intimidated Governor White with loud objections to any changes. Clinton accused White of badgering educators, and teachers at the governor's school simply went underground with their controversial philosophy until Clinton regained the governorship. Since then, the full curriculum at governor's school, including illegal psychological testing, has been more carefully concealed from parents and voters.
We said we would like to see a list of the people who were the discussion leaders and what their credentials were, and that information was never provided.
Could you turn the lights back on? Thank you. Please forgive the quote-unquote rude material that was shown on that tape. But that is just a little bit of what Governor Clinton wanted the elite of the 17-year-old students in Arkansas to experience and to see. And the governor's school was done during the summer. It was like a summer school program back then. But like the one man said that Hillary was talking about wanting to put that in the school system as a whole. Do you see where he's leading? The rest of the video goes on with other testimonials from other students about one student who went home and wanted to commit suicide. One did actually commit suicide. Another one just wrote a suicide note saying that the black one that seemed just, the world is one, you know, blah, blah. He actually wrote a suicide note. But the reason was he didn't want to get back into the reality of what was really going on. The government school just showed him just a perfect utopia, I guess you could say. And they also go on to say that they analyzed this as Clinton trying to get his political agenda into the brightest of the 17-year-olds in Arkansas, so that that will be ingrained in them, and they will take that as they go through the rest of high school and into college. So it's really just a political agenda. Now, this might seem like really terrible, and maybe this is even blown out of proportion a little bit. I'm not really sure. But even if it's close to the truth, do we want our children in a school that has the chance of experiencing things like you saw, success in Arkansas wasn't too great. 45th in literacy and 44th in standard achievement test scores. So not only are the belief systems and the philosophies that he's teaching are totally wrong, but the education is not successful. Another reason that parents send their child to a public school is they think that if they send their child to a Christian school, they won't get the social life, or they won't get the extracurricular activities that they feel their child should experience. Now, in an ACE school, which is Accelerated Christian Education, this is a curriculum for grades learning to read or even preschool through 2 years of the college level. And they have what is called an International Student Convention held every year. And there are some 7,000 schools that use this curriculum around the United States. They also have what they call regional conventions that are held at least one in every state once a year. And at these regional conventions, the students from these Christian schools participate in over 100 events, everywhere from academic events, from spelling, from Bible memory, to all kinds of physical activities like basketball, archery, and different arts and crafts. Over 100 events that they compete in. And whoever wins first and second place at the regional convention gets to go to the international convention, which is held at a major college once a year. Sometimes it's held at North Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona. Sometimes it's held in Denton, Texas, the university there in Texas. And more than 3,500 students come from the regional conventions to this convention to compete in the national convention in the same events that they entered in regionals. So this is definitely a chance where your child can have an opportunity for the extracurricular activities that are character building, that are also skill building. Now, as far as the social life is concerned, the question comes up, how is my child going to know what the real world is like if they're sheltered in a Christian school? They got to know what the problems are out there. They have to experience it so when they get older, they will know what's out there so they won't get shocked when they're just opened up to the real world. When I was in the International Institute of ACE, we had an instructor, his name was Stan Brook, and he gave a Christian philosophy class. And he gave me a little parable, I guess, or an example of this. He said that, or he asked the question, when you want to build a boat from scratch, do you take all your supplies, all the wood, all the nails, all the glue, and all the sealing so the water doesn't seep in and everything? Do you take that into the ocean, to the bottom of the ocean, and build your boat? Get it all? Do you do that? No. When you want to build a boat that'll float, you build it in what they call a dry dock. And you take all your materials, you put the basic shape together, you fill in all the cracks, you make sure that water is not going to seep in one little bit. And then when you're sure it's watertight, then you launch it out into the water, into the storms, and into any condition that the ocean can send you, because you know your boat is going to stay afloat. And they related that to our children. You see what is in our public schools, but our children aren't ready for it yet. They're not watertight. How can we think we can send our child into a situation like that and he's going to stay afloat? It's not going to happen. We need to ground our children in the character and in the wisdom of the Bible. So when they do get hit by things like this, they are watertight. They are sure of where they stand. They are rock solid, not easily swayed. And they can have a good opinion, a Christian example in front of people like this and not be swayed. The next set of parents I'd like to talk about is those who desire to send their child to a Christian school, but they don't, for a couple of reasons I'd like to share with you. One is, I hear a lot of times, is I can't afford to send my child to a Christian school. Dr. Howard, president of Accelerated Christian Education, talks about him going up to his next door neighbor. And he knew that his children were in public school. And Dr. Howard, with his vision for Christian education, had a burden for this man. And he went up just as they were mowing the lawn one day, went up to the fence and looked over and just, hey, so-and-so, come on over here, I'm going to ask you a few questions. So they talked a little bit, and he finally got on the question, why don't you send your children to a Christian school? Why do you send your children to a public school? Because this man did send his kids to a public school. And he said, well, I really can't afford it right now. And as soon as he said that, the other man looked over and saw a nice brand new town car sitting in the parking lot. And he saw a little runabout with the skis and the inner tube and the driveway. And as soon as that man said that, and as he saw those things, he didn't hear another thing that man said. First thing he thought was, where are your priorities? Where are your priorities? Are they in the recreation? And time with your children is good. But is it lasting? You can spend time with them many other different ways. But when he saw how the man used his money, he easily saw how he could have used these funds to send his children to a Christian school. So I want to ask you tonight, where are your priorities? If you feel that your child, I hate to say it, but you don't think this, but you're giving this feeling that your child's not worth it. If you're putting your money other places other than his future. His future. And if you seriously don't think that you have the money for a Christian school, and if you believe God is telling you tonight that you should send your child to a Christian school, God will provide the funds. He will provide the money. We walk by faith, amen? We walk by faith. Whatever God tells us to do, He will supply. Now another reason that Christian parents have that desire to send their kids to a Christian school but don't is that they say that a diploma from a Christian school is not very well accepted in different colleges. How many have heard that excuse? Let me put it this way. How many have ever heard this quote by people that think this? Have you thought it yourself maybe? Well, I have with me, and I can show it to you later after tonight's service, that I have a list of over 100 major colleges around the U.S. that have presently accepted graduates from an ACE school. And it's becoming very well known, and the diploma from an ACE school is almost, it has more weight to it than a diploma from a regular public school. Today reports show in major colleges, either Christian or secular, that entrance to a college does not depend on a diploma or where you got your diploma or where you received your diploma. It is based on entrance scores, on your test scores, your ACT scores, your regular tests that you take going into a college. So they mainly look at what you know and not what kind of piece of paper you have. So if you think that the diploma from your local Christian school wouldn't be good enough, think again. Because colleges really don't look at that diploma anymore. They did it one time, but as the public schools have fallen so quickly, they realize that they cannot just depend on saying you went to so-and-so elementary school, or this so-and-so junior school, or this so-and-so high school, that you're ready to enter. They base it more on testing now than the diploma. So you ask, where do I send my child? I realize the information you've given me tonight, and either I desire to send my child to a Christian school, or I'm sending my child to a public school now, but I'd rather him be in a more Christian environment so he can be ready to face the world with its challenges. Well, I have with me tonight some information on Maranatha Christian Academy, which is right here in South Tucson, and I'm the principal of that school, and I would love to share with you what we are doing with our children. Our enrollment is now about 65 students, and we are now presently building a building which will handle about 200 students in our Christian school. And we use, like I mentioned before, the Accelerated Christian Education Program. And it has been very successful. And I would love to share with you some information. You can take this information home with you and your wife. Read it over, pray about it, and then give me a call on the number on the brochure, and we can set up an appointment to talk over some more of the possibilities of Christian education for your student. Now, the pastor told me tonight that there were some of you here that come from other cities. Some of you are here from Phoenix for this service, and there might not be a Christian school in your area. Well, if there isn't a Christian school in your area, it is possible for you and your pastor in your church to start a Christian school themselves. Now, you might look at me and say, me start a Christian school? I mean, actually train children? Yes, you can. The ACE curriculum is designed so that you can start a school with 1 student, 2 students, all the way up to 500 students if you desire. And it is totally individualized, which means that each student learns right where he's ready to learn. And you can take any child in your church, including your own, and train him in this curriculum. And again, afterwards I have some information on the ACE curriculum. And it's very well organized. It's a company that's been around since 1970. And they have been through 3 editions of curriculum, and the 3rd edition is beautiful. They're coming out with video curriculum, video computer interactive curriculum, which no public school is even touching right now. But God has blessed this curriculum corporation to be able to produce this kind of material for your child. And there are many procedures manuals and testing procedures that are available for you, for the staff that you might decide to start your Christian school, and for your students, and it's very easy. It's very self-explanatory, and you can do it this fall in your church. So please, if you would, come to me afterwards, and I'll give you some information on that, and maybe I could come speak at your church and speak more specifically on the ACE program and how it can benefit you and your children. Now, there is one other way. If you really feel that you cannot spend the money on Christian education, if you're maybe a single mother or you just don't have the funds, homeschooling is available. And Maranatha Christian Academy offers a correspondence program for homeschoolers, which is very nominal, very nominal. The yearly charge for a student, average student completing the average amount of work, is about $150 for tuition and $150 for all of his books. So that is very nominal compared to any other Christian school, and pretty much anybody can afford that for one child. So again, if you would see me afterwards, I can share with you about the homeschooling program that we have. Tonight I would like to leave you this verse, which is Proverbs 22:6. It says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." Now notice in this verse that when it says, train up a child in the way he should go, it doesn't say, train up a child in the way he thinks he should go. It doesn't say, train up a child in the way the government thinks he should go. It doesn't say, train up a child in the way your president thinks he should go. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. God has given us, as parents, I believe, a command to train up our children in the way they should go, which is the principles and the wisdom found in this book. And you're not going to find the principles and wisdom found in this book in the public schools. You're only going to find this in a Christian school. In a school that is dedicated not only to high academics for your child, but also to a spiritual end, which is salvation, knowledge of Christ, and then salvation through His Spirit. And then prayerfully, as Proverbs promise, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this evening, Lord. I thank you again, Lord, for showing us your way.